Happy New Year and welcome to the first MGA video of 2024. So to get started, if you're new here, hi, my name is Rye and this is My Grandfather's Axe, a channel where I'm learning woodworking as a beginner from my late grandfather's tools. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my typical project walkthroughs because I want to talk a bit about the channel and something new that I want to bring to it in 2024. But for now, I want to give a little bit of a background into how I got interested in woodworking, the channel itself, and where it's headed for 2024. So if we rewind way back to when I was a little kid, I was completely enamored with the idea that my grandpa could build things. To me, stuff that you wanted or had in your house just came from the store. So you can imagine, I pretty well thought my grandpa was like a superhero growing up because he was the only one I knew who was doing that kind of thing, and I thought that it was like virtually impossible. So it definitely was something that I was really enamored by when I was younger. But as I got a bit older and a bit wiser, I'd like to think, obviously it started to make some more sense to me, and I was really interested in learning how to do it for myself and kind of continuing that on. So unfortunately, my grandpa and I lived extremely far apart for the majority of my life. We're talking like 3,000 kilometers far apart, so it's not like I could just jump into the car, head on over to Grandpa's workshop and hang out with him for an afternoon. And so in high school, I enrolled in shop class in lieu of being able to spend time in my grandpa's shop. And in grade 9, I learned how to build a little airplane. It took me about 4 months and I was scared of all of the tools, often bribing my friends to make the cuts on the table saw or the bandsaw for me. But I got it done and it looked really good. I still have it. And then in 10th grade, I took shop class again and we learned how to make little end tables, complete with a little drawer. And the whole time that I was building this project and the whole time I was doing the airplane project, Grandpa was always on my mind. As soon as I walked into that shop, I smelled that fresh pine smell. He always smelled like that, whether he was in the shop or not. So it would just bring me right back to spending time with him. And so when it came time to choose the design for the drawer pull, I wanted to further that connection to my grandfather, and one of the other things that he loved to do was sail. He had his own sailboat, and so I designed a little anchor that served as the drawer pull on the front of that piece. And to me, that story just paints a really nice picture of how interconnected woodworking has been with my grandfather my whole life. Whenever I think grandpa, I think woodworking, and when I think woodworking, I think grandpa. So when grade 11 came around, I decided to move away from shop class, start focusing on some more university related classes. I have a degree in journalism, so I was trying to set myself up to take the classes that I would need to get into that program. And I went to film school for a little while. I just kind of switched gears. But it's always kind of in the back of my mind. I'm still interested in doing woodworking, and I always hoped that I would have an opportunity to spend some time with my grandpa in the shop and to learn from him. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and in December of 2020, my grandpa passed away. And that was really hard, not just for me, for everyone in the family. He was really important to all of us. And in the weeks following his passing, my grandmother decided to sell the home that they lived in, and so a lot of downsizing needed to happen. And one of the big questions looming over everyone was, what the hell are we gonna do with his entire shop? And after he passed away, this interest in woodworking became so much more than just, I want to learn how to build these things. It was an opportunity for me to continue the connection to my grandfather. And that's when I raised my hand and said, hey, you know what? I really want to have his shop, because if he was able to make beautiful pieces with what he had in his shop, surely I could learn how to make beautiful pieces with those same tools as well. So my uncle packed everything up, loaded it into a trailer which he attached on the back of an RV, and hauled it 3,000 kilometers across the country to a storage unit where it sat for about 6 months. And in that time, it was kind of this moment of, okay, now I have the stuff. Where the hell am I gonna put it? So what ended up happening is I bought a house. I bought a house with an awesome detached garage that I'm standing in right now, and I have been so lucky to be able to build it out and make it my own, and it just has everything that I need. It has been a really great space. And shortly after I took possession of the house, with the help of friends and family, we got Grampa Shop 2.0 set up, and very shortly after that I posted my very first video to this channel. That first video went out in the summer of 2022, and so this marks about the 18-month point of learning woodworking from my grandpa's tools. But the whole time, it's kind of felt like something has been missing. I spent a lot of time building with the tools that he gave me, that he passed down to me, but it's mainly just been me building what I want, what I need, or what friends and family have asked me to put together for them, and there hasn't been as much of a connection to really learning from my grandfather as I would like there to be. So my solution for that is this. This is my skill tree, and this is how I'm going to learn to build like Grandpa. The way it works is I've outlined 5 different projects that my grandpa made that I'm going to recreate in an effort to learn from him and the techniques that he liked to use in woodworking. But each project is going to involve a lot of learning for me. So each one has been broken down into the different components that I'm going to need to master before I can successfully recreate the project as a whole. So I came out to the garage the other day and I put this together on the back of a scrap piece of hardboard that I had from a previous project. So I've organized them in order of what I think will be the easiest to the most difficult of the projects. And each new project should build on some of the skills that I learned in the previous one. So before I go any further into the skill tree and the different projects I'm looking to recreate, I have to shout out the original creator I got this idea from. Jane is a beginner in the glass blowing world doing some super cool stuff. I will link her platforms down below so you can check her out. So thank you to her for putting that video out. I don't think I would have come up with this method otherwise. But all that being said, let's take a more in-depth look into each of these 5 projects that I've chosen and the components that make up each one. So to start, we're going to look at the Octagonal Mirror. And this is a project that a lot of people in my family have in their homes. It's a pretty simple project, but he used to make a lot of them. So within that mirror project, there's a number of things that I'm going to need to learn. So first are the routing techniques, which are further broken down into both rabbets and roundovers. And then I'll need to learn how to cut really precise miters so that the mirror fits together nicely. I'll also need to learn how to cut glass, because I've never worked with glass before, in order to inset the mirror into the back. And I'm gonna need to figure out what his finishing techniques were, what kinds of stains he was using, what kinds of actual finishes he was putting on in the end, how he liked to apply them, those kinds of things to try and mimic the look. The second project that I have outlined here is what I call the Knickknack Shelf. Again here, there's some routing techniques I'm gonna need to learn. I think he used the OG in this, but I'm not totally sure. So that's what I've put down. He also included keyhole slots on the back for mounting. I'm gonna need to learn how to do that. And I believe he used some kind of corner template on the edges here. As you can see, the corners kind of bump out a little bit differently than just a straight round over. So I'm gonna need to figure out how he did that. Secondly, on this one, he cuts half circles here. It's actually kind of hard to get circles nice and precise, so I'm gonna look into different methods for that. The third project here is a coat rack. I consider this level 3. So the things that I'm gonna need to learn how to do here are a plunge groove, because he actually built this with a groove in the top, I believe, to hold decorative plates. And so I'm gonna need to learn how to use my plunge router and add a groove. And he also turned these pegs himself. So I'm gonna need to do my first ever wood turning project. And from that, I don't have a lathe. That's one of the things that I did not inherit from my grandfather. So I need to figure out how to wood turn, which includes probably making a drill-powered tabletop lathe. So I'm gonna need to look into best methods for that, what kind of design I'm interested in, all of those different things. Level 4 is the side table. And the side table has quite a few things in it. It's a much more complicated project, but I should have been building my confidence working into this point, so I'm going to be ready to take it on. I'm going to need to continue to perfect my box joint technique. So I have used box joints in the past, and this isn't an entirely new technique for me, but I'm not sure that my method that I used is necessarily the one I want to stick to, so I'm going to do a little more research, a little more experimenting there. I also realized on further investigation that he actually laminated the tabletop. I couldn't tell that it was laminated because the seam is so well done. He jointed them so nicely. So the only way I could tell is because there's a little bit of glue drip on the bottom. So I'm gonna have to figure out some kind of jointing method. I don't have a jointer. I know there's lots of different methods out there. If you have preferred methods that you use without a jointer in your shop, I'd be very eager to hear them. Let me know down below for sure. I'm gonna need to learn how to turn legs. So luckily in the coat rack piece, I'm gonna figure out some kind of wood turning device and technique, and that's going to feed into this need to turn table legs. I'm gonna need to look at how he mounted the legs. I'm not totally sure how he did that, so I'll need to do some investigating there. And then the last thing here is he used to do this signature wood carving technique. I'm gonna call them wheat sheaves, but that's this decorative detail on the top here you can see on the corners. And I've tried to do that a few times before and failed miserably, so I'm gonna need to continue practicing. I think that's just a practice makes perfect kind of thing. So that covers off the side table and level 4, and level 5 is kind of where a lot of these pieces come together, and that is this blanket box. So for the blanket box, I'm gonna need to learn some new joinery techniques. Specifically, I'm gonna need to learn dowel joinery, as well as what I like to call Grampa style dovetails. They're kind of a hybrid joint, but they're a really interesting look at dovetails, so I'm gonna have to take a closer look on that. I know dovetails are really complicated to get them to fit nicely, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of practice there. There's also piano hinge involved in this one. I don't think that's a really big piece, but it is something I haven't done before, so I've laid it out here. I'm gonna have more miter cuts here. I've labeled them separately than the miter cuts in the Octagonal Mirror because they're going to be 45s versus the Mirror, I believe, are 22.5s. So there might be some different techniques, some different things to watch out for that I need to look at. And then also finishing. Again, through all of this, he had a very particular finishing style. Most of his pieces, as you can see, are very similar in the tone that he uses. But I believe for the blanket box, he also wanted it to look weathered. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, his technique was just to whip the box with a chain. I'm gonna have to get some more details there. That sounds really fun, actually, but I'm gonna need to figure out how he did that. And those are the 5 projects. That's the outline. This is gonna be what I'm working towards for the majority of the year. One other thing to mention is there will still be project videos hitting this channel. So if you're interested in things like home renovation or other woodworking kinds of projects, I need to fix my stairs, for example, please do stick around because that kind of stuff is not gonna go away from this channel. I'm just kind of switching gears a little bit to introduce something like this. I would love to hear your feedback on this skill tree. Is this something you would be interested in trying in your own creating journey? Is this something you've seen before maybe? Do you have advice about specific ways I might handle any of these things that I've laid out as different techniques that I need to learn? Yeah, I'm really excited for this new chapter. I think that this gives me a much clearer picture of where I'm going this year, what I'm trying to accomplish, instead of just kind of like dilly-dallying around and like kind of learning some things and kind of not learning others. This really forces me in a good way to learn the techniques and challenge myself, really is what this is about. I hope you'll stick around to see the learning process unfold as I work my way through the AACBANO Apprentice and figure out how any axe hole can build like Grandpa. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.